What are the considerations for girls and young women as they become involved in activism? In many ways, the issues that girls and young women need to think about are the same as for anyone else. But we do know that gender and age make a difference in people's experiences within activist groups. So I'm going to try to talk about a couple of the particular issues that girls and young women might want to think about. First, a lot of the most exciting and ambitious activism happening today is done by girls and young women, from climate strikes where girls are picketing instead of attending schools, to activism against gun violence, against sexual harassment and violence on college campuses and in high schools, to immigration rights. Girls and young women are at the center. This is actually a huge opportunity. It's not always the case historically that there are a lot of young activists at any given moment. There are plenty of times when there are not a lot of activists at all. And one of the most important things for new activists is to get connected to others. So the ability to connect with girls and young women who are activists is a huge opportunity. What if there aren't politically active girls and young women in your school or where you live? There are lots and lots online, and online communities have a reputation as sort of cesspools of misogyny and harassment. There's certainly some truth to that, but they can also provide safe spaces to explore, to learn, and to network with others. There are specific challenges that many girls and young women who are activists think about. When I ask high school and college women what issues they're concerned with, one of the biggest questions that I get is, how can I build an inclusive movement? How can I build a movement that's inclusive of multiple genders, including trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming folks, that's inclusive of people of color as well as white people, of people of all class backgrounds, all sexual identities. This is a really hard issue for activists of any age and any gender. One of the reasons it's so difficult is that U.S. society is pretty segregated by race and by class, and people tend to recruit activists from among their friendship networks. It's important to think about building a diverse movement right from the beginning. That's a lot easier than realizing partway down the road that your group is not diverse and trying to invite other people in at that point. By then, it's already your movement, and you've also missed out on the various perspectives you would have gained from having it diverse from the beginning. It's also important to realize that if you are a marginalized person and you are a numerical minority in your group, you probably need some separate spaces with other people who share your identities and your experiences in order to talk through your perspective and have a safe space for yourselves. Another challenge for girls and young women is being taken seriously in the face of sexism and ageism. Older activists may be happy to have you join their groups, but they may not take your ideas seriously. Boys and men still occupy more leadership roles and command more authority. There's no easy answer to this, but it helps sometimes to think like a sociologist. That means to realize that these issues, these difficulties, are not a result of your own personal shortcomings. In other words, it's not that you're not assertive enough, it's just the way society is organized. There are also lots of concrete strategies you can take, like repeating each other's points in meetings, backing each other up, advocating directly for more young women in leadership positions. A final challenge, which is also sort of an opportunity, has to do with generational miscommunications and misunderstandings. I've studied generational differences among feminists, and these problems, these difficulties in communication are universal. The reason is that people's perspectives on the social world, on politics, on what issues are important, how you ought to talk about things, all of that is shaped by the experiences that we have as we're growing up, and especially as we're entering into adulthood. Because the circumstances that shape your experience as a young person are unique and different from those that shape my experiences as a middle-aged person or someone else's experiences as an older person, we are going to see the world differently. The fundamental assumptions we make about what issues are the most urgent, the solutions we imagine for those issues are going to be different. Today's older feminists, women in their 60s and 70s, were themselves the young feminists in their youth who were redefining the movement in ways that often didn't make sense to their elders. And the same is true for young people today. This is both a challenge and a source of power, right? The new perspectives that younger generations bring are crucial in helping movements figure out how to adapt, how to respond to the situations that are important at this moment. But it can be hard to communicate across barriers. Older feminists or older activists may sometimes think that with more education and experience, you will come to see things the way they do. You might think that they're old-fashioned or that they don't understand the current way of thinking. It's important to try to keep talking past these barriers. There's certainly a lot that younger activists can learn from experienced activists. There's a lot to learn about both the nuts and bolts of how you organize and about sort of the background of issues you might be interested in. But older activists can also learn from younger generations. They can learn how we might think about the issues that are important today without always seeing them through the lens of past experiences. The challenge is to embrace your perspective as a young person while trying to keep the lines of communication with older activists open. So to conclude, young women have been central to every major social change movement, and I expect today is no different. Young women have been central to suffrage, to civil rights, to feminism, to gay rights, to climate change activism, to immigration activism, and more. So be aware of the challenges, but don't let them stop you from working to make the changes you see as important.